Welcome to Season 4 of the Healthy Living Doesn't Have to Suck podcast. My name is Melissa with a Y, your hype woman for health, double board certified lifestyle medicine coach, and size inclusive fitness specialist. This podcast was created to help educate, empower, and inspire you to engage in healthy lifestyle behaviors to help you feel your best. Because when we change our habits, we can change our lives. And when we change our lives, we can change the world. Through solo episodes and special guest expert interviews, we are on a mission to make the healthy choice the easy choice. Thanks so much for tuning in, and welcome to the Changemaker community. Welcome back, Changemakers. I am so excited to introduce y'all to Kait Richardson. We have been connected for a few years now, and actually, I used to coach her at F45. If you don't know, it's functional training for 45 minutes, F45, international brand. Very cool. Very glad that I got to connect with her there because she's actually a registered dietitian and entrepreneur. So, Kait, thank you so much for joining us on the Healthy Living Doesn't Have to Suck podcast.
Yeah, I'm so thrilled to be here. And it's fun to think about our F45 days because that was pre-COVID. I mean, that feels like yesterday. And to think that that was like, what, 6 years ago? It's wild.
Yeah. Everything has been a time warp since then.
Yeah, truly, truly.
Well, I am so excited to introduce you to our audience and all of the amazing things that you do. You know, nutrition can be an extremely confusing topic. So really grateful to have you sharing your knowledge and expertise today. But for our listeners who might not know who you are quite yet, do you mind sharing a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist, and I work in a private practice local to Orlando called Nutrition Awareness. And it's the best job ever, I have to say. It's so much fun because we have an office and we get to sit across the desk from people all over the Central Florida area. We really get to know them and understand them, their struggles, what they're trying to accomplish, especially with health and body image and food and all of that stuff all worked into one. And we get to build a relationship and help our clients get results and transformation. And so it's such a special job. And I'll tell you, I've learned so much from being able to have thousands of one-on-one conversations about nutrition. And what really excites me is taking those conversations that I have in the office and packaging them up, sharing that information, that knowledge, that understanding on podcasts, during corporate talks, in keynotes. And so that's what I'm doing now. I'm still doing one-on-one coaching, and I'm doing a lot of speaking.
I love that. Yes. And something, a very important credential I forgot to share is you are now a TEDx speaker.
Yeah, yes. We did a TEDx talk in September in Tampa, and it's on YouTube. The original title was supposed to be You Can't Live a Full Life on an Empty Stomach, but they changed it when they uploaded it to The Importance of Fueling, which killed me because I was like, that's so boring. But I'm really proud of that talk. I love it. If anybody watches it and has feedback, that would be the world to me. And kind of inspired from I wrote a book. I think you wrote a book too, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yep. So wrote a book, and it was called How to Eat Like a Normal Person. And the whole premise was like, you can't live your full, most purpose-driven, amazing life if you're depleted, if you're running on E, if you're constantly thinking about food, if food is controlling you, either because you're restricting it or you're overeating it and not really putting any thought into it. So that's a lot of the premise of my work.
That's so true. Oh my gosh. Well, definitely make sure to link your TED Talk in the show notes because everyone should go watch it. I know I loved what you were talking about. That's why I was so excited to share you with our audience today. And I think we'd love to know a little bit about like, who is Kait outside of work then? We now know you have this passion for nutrition and healthy living, but what are some of your favorite things to do outside of work?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'll tell you this. When I was in college and I was studying to become a dietitian, nutrition was my whole world. I was like, this is it. This is all I care about. All I wanted to do was go to the gym and come home and drink protein shakes and then like research all of these different things. Like it took over my brain. And I will say that that's still a huge part of my life. I still love to lift weights. I still love learning about nutrition, talking about nutrition. But at the time, that was my whole world. And the rest of my world was kind of small. It's kind of what I talk about in the TED Talk. It's what I talk about in my book because I just thought that by controlling my body and controlling my food, I would find like purpose and happiness and like myself and feel confident. Because growing up, I was not very confident. I wasn't the cool girl. I didn't really feel confident in my skin. And I just thought that like fitness and nutrition would be my key to everlasting happiness. And I would tell you that is not true, although it was a pivotal part of my journey. So now I can say now that I'm almost 32, I'm 31, and I've come so far since college and my life has gotten bigger. The things I like to do outside of work include being a mom. I'm a mom. That is most of my time. And I've really gotten to translate some of my passion for nutrition into parenting, like thinking about what my kid is eating, how I can make
Oh,
things more
yeah.
toddler friendly. I cook for my husband too, right? That's my job in the house. I call myself the CFO of the house, the chief food officer.
Oh,
So
I
as a
love
chief
that.
food officer, I'm like, how do I feed my people? And that's what brings me a lot of joy and passion. And other than that, really, it is just pouring into my community. I mean, that's huge to me. The clients that I serve, my friends, the people in Orlando and Central Florida, that's my passion, is really just figuring out how to make my world and then therefore the whole world healthier.
I appreciate you sharing that so much because I think there's going to be so many people listening that can relate to that experience of like finding something and trying to create that meaning and purpose behind it. But what happens if that, doesn't come to fruition? So really learning how to navigate that too. And it sounds like you were able to do that in a way that led you to a very purposeful career.
Yeah.
And when we're thinking about healthy living and nutrition and all of this stuff, there's so much noise out there in the world right now between social media, campaigns, and things like that for food in particular. Would love to know, like, when we think about educating ourselves on nutrition, what is something that you would love for our listeners to learn from today's episode?
This might be controversial. I think that education is like 5% of the puzzle. Because, like you said, there is so much
Mm,
noise and there is so much research, but that research is changing constantly. And there are groups of us who aren't getting as much research done, right? Like, let's talk about like
right.
women over 40 and menopausal groups. Like, we don't have a lot of research on women over 40 and nutrition, right? And then there's everybody's opinions. Everyone's got an opinion. So if you're on your phone, if you're on Reddit, if wherever you are, LinkedIn, getting information, you're going to find an opinion that contradicts yours. So I
Mm,
could tell someone about education. I think it's great to be educated, but you've got to know your like line. Where's the threshold between education and then action? Because we
yes.
all know that fruits and vegetables good for us. I mean, I guess there are groups, controversial groups that say no, that they're not good for you. But let's just say for today's purposes, like fruits and vegetables, good for you. Okay,
Mm,
why aren't more people taking action to eat more fruits and vegetables and less ultra processed foods? So then the next piece is, well, maybe we need to take some action to audit our environment, to create some systems within our house, within ourselves, within our workplace to help facilitate more intake of fruits and vegetables. Maybe we need to sit down and look at our budget and see how we can afford more fruits and vegetables without it putting a financial strain, what we should eat less of or spend less on. So I really, when it comes to education, I would take it, but I would really just say, well, how can you apply it? And then if you want to try a new piece of information, like let's say you're reading somebody telling you all about the benefits of fasting, right? And they're sharing their story about fasting and how fasting works for them and how they get all
sure.
these benefits from fasting. And I will tell you that some people get massive benefits from fasting and other people don't. But how do you know unless you implement that action and really give it a go? And
Mhm.
then after you take that action, reflect honestly with yourself. How did you feel? Did you feel more productive until 2 p.m. and then crash and then eat a bunch of sugar? Or did it help you not make so many food decisions and you were able to stay on track with what you're eating because you weren't constantly thinking about when you should be eating or if you should be eating? Those guidelines are created for you. So it really is applying the education to your own life, taking action, and then auditing yourself and seeing if it really worked or not.
Oh, that's so powerful because I see a lot of that too when it comes to even just goal setting with people where they
Yeah.
don't take the time to slow down and reflect on, well, what is working well? What did you enjoy? What's not working so well? And what could we try differently? And applying those same principles of experimentation almost
Mhm.
to the food that you eat and what you like and what you don't like. I think there's so much emphasis on that action piece that is so important and gets overlooked a lot because yeah, you could dig yourself into a whole rabbit hole about all the research around nutrition and get stuck in the mud and then not know where to go next when the key could be just taking like the next smallest step.
Yeah.
And yeah, the other thing that you said that I really liked was the systems, setting up those systems for yourself to be successful in implementing the knowledge that you're gaining. I thought that was awesome.
I'm glad you thought so, because one thing that I've realized in my work as a dietitian is I'm spending a little bit of time educating patients. You know, when I see them for 60 minutes, we'll spend some time educating. You know, I'm going to share with them some nutrition research. But really, what I'm doing is I'm looking at that individual, identifying some things that could be happening to them, and then helping them create a system to help them feel better so they feel better. So, for
Mm-hmm.
instance, if we do an education piece about how they're slumping and crashing at 2 p.m., and I teach them about blood sugar balance, which is like a huge pillar of a lot of dietitians' work, and especially mine, where we look at how do we fuel your body so your blood sugar and your energy doesn't crash. Okay, there's the education. Now
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to help you create a system for your busy work schedule so that your body's well fueled. But at the end of every session, I'm going to say, let's give this a try. Keep documentation, keep a food log, log your energy,
Yes.
log your hunger, log your cravings. Come back to the drawing board, come back and see me in like 2 weeks, and if we need to go back to the drawing board, we will, because this
Mm-hmm.
system could work really well for somebody and then not so well for somebody else, just given their circumstance. So I think
Absolutely.
that's what's most important.
Yeah, and I feel like some people get frustrated that there's not like a one size fits all approach to nutrition and health in general, you know? Um and those systems that you create are ultimately what's going to help support that sustainable change, that sustainable energy over time. So that was, I definitely hope people like lock that nugget away and say, ooh, I need to remember that. Now, when we're thinking about all of the noise that we do consume around nutrition and now having like a foundational knowledge, maybe we're familiar with some of the dietary guidelines or we are working with a registered dietitian, how can we help people feel more empowered around making these changes with nutrition? Because sometimes I think there could be a lot of overwhelming things that people try where it's like, okay, no junk food in the house moving forward, and they try to overhaul everything overnight. And it might lead to short term results. But I guess my ultimate question is how can we help people feel more empowered around sustainable nutritional changes?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, it probably takes a few times of having that experience of where you go all in, like you're really intense, and then realizing that doesn't work. I think some people, most people maybe, unless they're born with like this magical like power of consistency and patience, which like I don't have. I'm very all I
Nope,
have
not
by
either.
default. Yeah, same. I'm like all or nothing by default. I've had to
Uh-huh.
like
Uh-huh.
really rewire my brain with food not to be that way, and it's still not easy
Same.
sometimes. So I almost say have to learn that lesson on your own a few times. And then you get this magical lesson in patience. And I think the universe or God or whoever we believe in teaches us lessons in patience all the time. But most of us who struggle with that, like, don't want to see them. Like, we don't want to, like, hear them. So,
Yeah.
in terms of empowering, I like people to really remember that consistency trumps intensity every single time. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that helping people really focus on either their vision for their health, their vision in 6 months or 12 months, or their why. What is their why? So I never have a talk with somebody one on one without saying, why are you here? Why are you trying to make these changes to your health? What is your vision in 6 to 12 months? What's different about how you feel, how you look, how you show up in the world in 6 to 12 months if you got the best case scenario? And then why is that important to you? Why do you want to feel better in your clothes? Why do you not want to drag yourself out of bed at like 9 a.m. wondering why you hit snooze 6 times again? Like, why? What's the reason? And I truly think that if somebody has a strong enough reason and they
Mm.
have a clear enough vision, then they can be empowered. They might need support from a dietitian, from a therapist, from a friend, from a health coach, whatever. But they need their why and they need their clarity on their vision. What are they
Mm.
going towards and why? And then they needed to be reminded that every single day.
Amen to that.
Right? Yeah, because like how many times have you ever come off of like a vacation and you're like, I'm never drinking alcohol again. I am never touching dessert again. And in that moment, like you feel really passionate about that. You're like, yeah, I feel like bad. I don't want to do that anymore. But then in a week, you're a different person.
Mhm.
But if your purpose, your bigger picture, and your vision are really strong and really empowering themselves, then it doesn't matter if you're a different person in a week because those things are still solid. And I don't know, tell me what you think. I think some people don't have a strong enough reason sometimes, or maybe they haven't thought
Mhm.
about it.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that because you mentioned two words that are actually in my 2026 mantra. This year, I'm focusing on consistency, courage, and clarity. And you mentioned the consistency over intensity. Oh, chef's kiss. Absolutely love that.
Me
It's
too.
so true. It's so true. And then, yeah, the clarity piece of it. A lot of people don't dig down to that deeper meaning behind their why. They may think their why is to lose weight so they can be healthy, but it's like no, like what is losing weight going to bring into your life? Like what is important to you about losing that weight? So I actually did like the 7 layers of the why activity in my book where it's like, start with what is your initial thought for why this is important to you? Okay, now ask yourself, why was that answer important to you to help really get to more of that deeper purpose behind of wanting to make these lifestyle changes.
Yeah.
And like you said, revisiting it over and over and over again, because it may shift, it may evolve, or even just having that reminder is going to spur you to be like, oh, right. Maybe I will rethink that third glass of wine or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. It's true. You have to really remember it and remind yourself all the time. And then I actually love that those are your words. I think courage is such an important one too, because here's something that I think takes courage. Okay. Let's say that you have your vision, you have your clarity there, you have your why, and you're on this journey, your hero's journey, if you will. And you're doing so great. You're like, wow, like I'm in it. I'm in it. I'm doing it. And then this is my theory, I think the universe always tests us, right? When we say we're working towards a vision, we're working towards a health goal, I think we get tested. Kids get sick. You go on vacation. A friend drops like a whole box of crumble cookies at your house for no reason because they love you, right? Like something is going to happen. You're always tested, okay?
Yeah.
There's not like a pass or a fail of the test. The only fail is if you, let's say, eat the crumble cookies and then give up completely and forget the whole journey.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it takes courage too, if you eat more cookies than you feel good about, to try again the next day, to just like shake it
Yes.
off and keep going. I think that real courage and it just kind of like strengthens that mental muscle of consistency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I love that example because I actually just got gifted some crumble cookies. And I was like, ooh, I can put some of those in the freezer. I could just, treat myself on occasion. Don't have to
Yes.
get rid of the whole box in one sitting, like Melissa of maybe 10 years ago might have. So recognizing those moments of progress too, because like we both shared, having that all or nothing mindset can be so difficult to overcome. And you do have to build those mental muscles of consistency. I love that you brought that up
Totally.
again. And just, keep on keeping on and not let one bad moment or one bad day totally throw you off track. And I think along the lines of courage too, we have a lot going on within the nutrition world. The new dietary guidelines were just released, and so I've seen a lot of conflict between opposing views of everything going on around that. And I think if you're on a health journey, you may have to have some courage to kind of stand up for what it is that you're working on and what the nutrition plan that you are following is, and working with professionals like you people should respect that, but they might have their own very strongly held beliefs. So I think learning how to navigate those conversations around nutrition can also be an element of courage that people need as well.
Well, and I think part of that, 'cause you're so right there. Sometimes with something like the dietary guidelines for Americans, right? Those are instilled for a reason. They help give guidelines to, let's say, dietitians who do menu planning for nursing homes or childcare facilities. Those types of institutions need guidelines, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But then what I think happens is because people get really all or nothing, and especially with nutrition, it's kind of like religion. People get really convicted, right? There's people who are
Yes.
kind of like, yeah, I can see everyone's point of view. And then there are people who are like, oh my God, no, you can only eat red meat. All carbs are bad for you. And then you have people on the other side saying, no, like meat is poison. You're brainwashing people for telling them they should eat meat. Like it gets so heated. And all of
Yes.
these people have really strong whys, right? They have these really passionate reasons. And it gets political because food's political. And sometimes I also think that it's really easy to hold a tight, strong opinion that there is one right way for everyone. I think that's the easy, lazy way to think. And so when
Mm-hmm.
I look at the dietary guidelines of Americans, I'll be totally honest with you. I never have used any of them ever in practice. Maybe some of the saturated fat guidelines I'll
Sure.
reference for somebody who comes in with like a specific goal to lower their cholesterol. I never whipped out my plate, which was before the current ones. I never used that because my
Mm-hmm.
world, as I'm looking at the individual, and I'll tell
Yes.
you that I can see some individuals who thrive eating higher saturated fat because the new guidelines tell you that less than 10% of your diet should come from saturated fat. What does that mean? Well, if someone's eating 2,000 calories, it's like 22 to 24 grams of saturated fat, something around there. That's not a lot. When you start counting saturated fat, you'll see that egg
Mm-hmm.
yolks, your cheese stick, and like 4 ounces of beef is going to get you way above that. So it's really not a
Right.
lot. But if I'm looking at someone's lipid panel, their cardiac history, their age, their activity levels, and they're eating more saturated fat and that helps them feel full, maybe helps lower their insulin resistance, gonna look at these saturated fat recommendations. But then on
Right.
the flip side, I have helped a lot of people who come in with high cholesterol. We zip that, we get that saturated fat down so low that feels in a way that feels sustainable that they get a raving review at their next blood panel. And then we
Uh-huh.
decide, okay, do we want to like continue this? Do we want to modify it? Do we want to
Right.
create some cushion for you? When do you enjoy saturated fats and when do you cut back? And that just depends on that person's risk factor and preference. So I think the dietary guidelines have caused so much passion because this season specifically, it's very political.
Right.
And that's just kind of food's always going to be political.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. But right now, everybody is taking sides. So I think that's kind of influencing it. And I think a lot of dietitians and nutrition professionals are frustrated because it makes their job a little bit harder and maybe
Right.
contradicts some of the education that they feel powerful and or powerfully about.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is just such an important thing to consider is first of all, it was very helpful hearing you kind of talk through what some of those guidelines and recommendations mean because the normal everyday person isn't going to sit down and thumb through the dietary guidelines on their own because they're curious about it.
No.
Like that's reserved for professionals like us for the most part. So really hearing a little bit about what do those actually mean and they're important and it's also important to consider that on the individual level.
Yeah.
So yes, there are guidelines. They're not hard in place rules for everyone to follow very rigidly because not every body is the same. So
And
taking
not
that into
everybody can
consideration,
afford what they're recommending. That's
that
so
too.
important too. It's
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes I forget because I'm blessed and I feel like because we can be on a podcast and people listening to podcasts, we have
Right.
access and we have choices.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not as many choices as we had before COVID or before inflation, right? Like we still have to
Right.
be mindful, but most of us can't really afford to buy. I mean, we might be able to afford, but a lot of people can't afford to buy a New York strip 3 times a week.
Yes.
and like beef tallow or whatever. My cottage
Mhm.
cheese, my full fat cottage cheese, almost cost $8 for like a half tub. Like it's
Right.
expensive sometimes
Hmm.
to eat this way. So I think that's another bone to pick too. With well, if we're going to recommend these for everyone, like how do we make them more accessible for everyone?
Accessible.
And that's where I think dietitians and nutrition professionals and anybody with an interest can really like show up and shine out. How do we help people optimize their diet on their budget and, make the most of what they can afford and what they have access to? And
Yeah.
I know that a lot of people feel very, very strongly about that. And that's why I think another reason, the guidelines are raising some flags for people.
Yeah, and I hope that helps people feel a little bit more empowered too, just thinking about like, okay, well, I might not be the only one that is getting maybe mixed messages or is confused by what's being promoted, but there are reputable sources to go to. There are people who can simplify it and work with you on that individual level, which is why it's so important to seek out professionals like yourself, and the registered dietitian can sit with you as a human and see what your human body needs in particular and not just a blanket recommendation. Um, so I think that would kind of lead into the okay, like people are understanding a little bit more about nutrition. Hopefully they're feeling a little bit better about maybe what kind of next steps they can take. So I think I would be curious, since we were so heavily emphasizing action earlier in this episode, what are some of the steps that you would recommend people engage in to kind of take their nutrition journey to that next level, or even just get that first step started?
Sure. Well, my first recommendation would always be try to meet with a dietitian. I will tell you, it's kind of like therapy, how therapy had a moment for a reason. It's like you can be in your own head, but until you're face to face with somebody and you just start to like spill out answers to their questions, because a good dietitian is going to ask you a lot of
A lot
questions.
of
Okay.
questions.
Then you're going to be able to really face what you're experiencing head on. So, for instance, I'm going to ask somebody, like, what is your biggest struggle on a day to day? How do the people in your house eat? How do they influence your decisions? When you go to work, are you constantly thinking about food, or do you come home and that's the first time you think about food? What happens then? So we're going to help you identify patterns that maybe you kind of knew existed but never really put on paper or clarified. Because sometimes we think the problem is like an us problem. We're like, oh, I don't have enough willpower. I don't have enough discipline around food. Like, why do I keep like eating cookies every single night? It's just a me. And then we think, that's it. I'll just stop buying cookies. That's it. And then that works for a week. And then still somehow, chocolate covered pretzels end up in your house. And you're like,
Mhm.
how did this happen? And the cycle continues. So
Right.
seeing a dietitian is going to tell you to look at your entire day. And we're going to figure out how you're eating, what you're doing, what your environment looks like, what your physiology is looking like that triggers you to overeat or make decisions you wish you hadn't, and then how to
Right.
optimize what you're eating during the day. So I think that seeing a dietitian is great. And the beautiful thing is now dietitians are more accessible. So
Yeah.
I am in a nutrition practice in Orlando that's in person, but you can meet with dietitians virtually. There's virtual platforms. Wherever you live, you can be able to find a dietitian. We love, like dietitians, we love one-on-one counseling. There are
Hmm.
so many of us with all different niches. So if you have hormone concerns, or if you're an athlete, or if you have diabetes, like you can find a dietitian in your price range, sometimes in your insurance network, who can
Hmm.
just really help you clarify your plan. And that would be the first place I'd start. And
Yeah.
after that, the second place I would start truly is in the kitchen. Truly. Because here's
I
what
love
I'm
that.
noticing. Okay. Sometimes I'll have this like kick butt session with somebody, or I'll be talking to an audience, and then I'll realize that maybe this person, especially, and I hate to do this, especially kids under 30. Okay. I'm not that much older than you, kids under 30, but like they don't know how to cook anymore.
Yeah.
I'll be
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, we just need to go in the kitchen. We need to do this. And I'm not talking, 20-step recipes with like every single seasoning in your grandma's cabinet. I'm
Hmm.
talking about like, making a grain bowl with sweet potatoes and roasted chicken. Okay.
Right.
And sometimes they're like, oh, that's a lot. So I would say you have to be able to get in the kitchen. I don't expect anyone to be like Julia Child, but we have to build some confidence. So we need to buy a
Yep.
skillet. We need to get like our hands dirty, and that's okay. And I also have noticed this happens. Maybe you feel this way. I don't know. I don't feel this way, but I empathize with people who do. They're so afraid of making a meal that tastes bad. They're like, what if I don't like it? What if I make this meal that I've never made before and I don't like it? I'm like, that's when you keep a box of high fiber pasta in red sauce. And, if you want to add a protein in there, you can. That's it. That's your backup. So you just
Yep.
have to get in there and try. And if all else fails, you can just have like chickpea pasta or something easy. So that's it. You
Yes.
have to be able to. I really think that cooking at home changes people's health because we eat out too much.
Yes.
We order in
Yes.
too much. I love to order in.
Agreed.
I love to take out. I love to go out to eat, wine, dine, meat. But if we are doing that 6 days a week,
Oh.
it's a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I can I can hopefully make some people feel comfortable out there because I am not a whiz in the kitchen. I am the first person who will admit that I do what I like to call lazy girl meal prep, where I
Yes.
get lots of like microwavable
Yes.
rice and sweet potatoes and Brussels sprouts and things like that. And I just pop them in the microwave and then I throw them all together.
Yes.
It's actually one of my goals this year is to try 12 new recipes. So I want to feel more confident in the kitchen since hubby is the one who cooks all of the dinners for us. I want to kind of
Lucky girl.
I am very lucky with that. I can like take care of myself for breakfast and lunch and like he has the dinners on lockdown. So
Yeah,
I
like you
would
said, do not let him go.
yes, exactly. I know. So I want to at least be able to step in and help on occasion because on the nights when maybe he has to work late, it's like, so are we doing Jimmy John's? Like, so I would love
Oh
to be
God.
able to step in, feel confident in the kitchen. So I love that you shared that because I can totally relate to that. And it does make such a difference when you're able to prepare meals in your home and you start to feel really proud of yourself for like enjoying the food that you created.
It's so human to like hold an ingredient and cook it and eat it. And I just feel like we're just in tech all the time that when you're in the kitchen, it is like humanness. I think people who garden and like when you go run or exercise,
Mm-hmm.
like you feel the same way. Like, oh man, this is like so like central to just being a
A
human.
human
And
being,
I
yeah.
think you nailed it though, because you don't have to like do everything from scratch. Like I don't do that now that I'm a toddler mom.
Ooh,
No,
I
so
bet.
it's everything just like pre-assembled or pre-cooked and then just assembled.
Mhm.
But you're controlling the ingredients, you're controlling the portions, you're probably getting more fiber, you're probably going to be able to put more vegetables in there, probably going to use healthier proteins that aren't, you know, fried or cooked in too much oil or too much fat. That
Yes,
there's just so many ways to optimize your health by just getting in your kitchen 20 minutes a day. I'll even
absolutely.
say 5 days a week.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. Treat yourself. Oh my gosh, why am I getting a phone call right now? I had do not disturb on. Okay, well, I'll be able to edit that out. Is the audio still good? It didn't mess with anything?
Nope,
All
so
right.
good.
Okay, cool. Well, something else that you mentioned, and you gave some great kind of initial steps for people to start taking action after they listen to this episode. But I would venture to guess that there are people out there who think that they only need to see a dietitian if they're dealing with a chronic disease. What would you say to those people?
Oh my gosh, I would tell them about this new client I had 2.5 weeks ago. Okay. So I'm gonna change his name. Okay. We're gonna
Yeah.
call him Joe. Okay.
Okay.
Joe's in his mid-20s, working professional. He came in and he sat down and he was like, I probably don't look like or seem like your typical client. I was like, what do you mean? And he goes, well, I'm not like really like bad at anything. I'm not really worried about my health. I'm not really overweight, but I just know that something's like off. And I was like, what do you mean something's off? Like, I was thinking, are you having digestion pains? Are you having low energy? And he was like,
Right.
I just know that I could be eating better. He was like, I see all the stuff online. They're all giving me information and ideas. And I think some of it's good, but I just look at my diet, and even though it's not bad, because he's 24, okay,
Right.
um, and he can maintain his weight at 24 with like an
Uh-huh.
okay diet, it just happens.
Uh-huh.
And he's like, I just don't want it to like catch up with me, and I know that I could be doing better. And sure enough,
Yeah.
he could be doing better because he didn't eat all day. Then he had a ham sandwich on white bread with chips. And then at night, he would go and get like a big, huge serving of something, take out.
Mhm.
And then on Fridays and Saturdays, that was inflated. And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, this isn't bad because it's not hurting you. We can really optimize it and change what you're doing in simple, easy ways to help you feel better and prevent chronic disease or prevent issues with diabetes or prevent issues with self-confidence or with GLP-1s now, right? Like that's what everyone's
Yeah.
talking about. So prevent you from ever going into a doctor's office faced with that pressure to take a
Mhm.
GLP-1 and you don't want to
Mhm.
because that's happening all the
A
time.
lot. A lot.
So yeah, he just came in. We just created this fun new plan for him. Wasn't a huge deal to switch some stuff up, but he really valued, you know what his reason was? He worked for his family's company. He was a workaholic and he loved it. And I'm like, oh, you're like an overachiever. You're a go-getter. If you eat like this when you turn 30, because everything changes when you turn 30, I'm like, you're
Oh
not
yeah.
going to feel great. So let's just like
Mhm.
get you ahead of the game here so that you can show up to work in front of your family, take over this family business and like scale it. So that was his reason.
I really appreciate you sharing that example because I already know that I've talked to people in the past who were like, "Well, dietitians only help people with chronic disease." And I was like, "You realize athletes have registered dietitians on their teams to help them fuel their athletic performance. Like
Yeah.
there are like culinary medicine chefs out there for people who are executives because they know
Yes.
how important their health is to their business. Like I think that's just such an important thing to highlight because I know I've run into that a couple times where maybe a preconceived notion that you have to have some sort of pre-existing condition to see a dietitian, and that may be the case for if you're using insurance, but it doesn't have to keep you from seeking out that professional guidance if you want to get ahead of the game.
Totally. Yeah, you don't need a chronic disease. You don't need a diagnosis. Even actually now with insurance, depending on your state, you can use virtual telehealth platforms.
Oh, nice.
Nourish is the one I recommend.
Okay.
And your insurance might cover a dietitian, and you don't have to like you don't have to be anything. You don't have to be obese. You don't have to have diabetes. You don't have to have kidney disease. Like, you can just be somebody who wants to eat better. Maybe you have, I think a common thing that I hear a lot is somebody just feels a little not like themselves. Like over the years, like life just got to them. Health was no
Yeah.
longer a priority. They just need somebody whose whole life and profession is nutrition to be in their corner, cheering them on and being like, hey, do not forget that your health matters. Here's how we can make it work with your lifestyle. I think that's where dietitians can really show value for the, we'll call them the gen pop, the general population.
I love that so much. Well, Kate, I know our time is coming to a close, so I would love to know how do you bring the healthy living doesn't have to suck message into your life and or work?
Ooh, into my personal life
Yeah.
or to my work? Yeah, okay. Well, I'll tell you this. To me, it was so different before having kids and after having kids. Because after having kids, I'm not going to go to 5 different grocery stores. Before I had kids, I would like drive all over. It was fun for me to go to Sprout and
Right.
Publix and Whole Foods. It's just not like that anymore.
Mhm.
So the way I infuse the non-suck part is I always connect to my why. Okay. Because when I look at my why, my reasoning, it can't suck. And
Yeah.
my why is because I want to feel good so I can do good. I feel
Mm.
like God put me on earth to help people and also to have fun. I know that sounds silly, but that's like one of
No,
my,
ow,
I
we
think,
love that.
yeah. I'm like, yeah, no, like I was put on here to like have fun and help people. Like that's it.
Mhm.
And I can't do that. I don't have fun. I can't help people when I feel bad. So if I'm not taking care of myself, if I'm not eating well, if I'm not meal planning, if I'm not eating my stupid protein and my stupid vegetables, I'm not going to feel good and I'm not going to have fun. And then that's not my life's purpose. And that sounds silly, but like that is like what I connect to. And so that's how it doesn't suck for me because the payoff, like, like when you have like a sick day, like when you're sick for a week and you start to feel better and you're like, oh my God, I'll never take this for granted again. Like, that's how I feel. If I go like 3 or 4 days neglecting my health for whatever reason, even if I'm having fun, I am like, like, no, I got to get this together because it's my why. It's my purpose.
Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. And one of the ways that you help people is through talks.
Yes.
You did TEDx, you have your book, you're in the corporate wellness space now. So would love to hear a little bit more about how our audience might be able to connect with you and work with you.
Totally. Well, I love, 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 love talking to organizations. So I would say about 80% of my client population are either leaders or they are corporate employees. They have jobs, they have lives, right?
Yeah.
And so I have this really unique understanding of the main struggles that working professionals experience. And I'm a working professional myself. And I love being able to give people an experience because when I'm in a one-on-one session, it is very personalized. But I do a lot of corporate talks, do keynotes, do workshops for organizations that really want to cultivate a wellness community. And they want their employees to feel that buzz. Like I want a lasting buzz in my audiences so that they can go into work and they can hold each other accountable and they can be excited about it and they can like go out to the healthy lunches together and they can plan meal swaps and they can audit the kitchen at their office and get rid of all the junk and replace it with great stuff. And so that's what my talks really aim to do, give
Mm.
audiences and organizations with leaders and employees tangible action steps to help them live healthier and get them psyched to do it because that's important. You've got to know. And going back to the reasoning and the clarity, I put that into my talk so that people leave with like, yeah, they feel their why and then they have action steps.
Incredible. Oh my gosh, Kate. Thank you so much for sharing your time, your energy, your knowledge with us today. For people who want to connect with you, where is the best places for them to do that?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Kait Richardson. That's the best place to find me, LinkedIn. And then my website, kaitricharsonrd.com. You can learn all about my speaking, keynotes, workshops. So if you want to bring a dietitian in to come inspire and empower your audience, you can consider me there.
Amazing. I will make sure to link all of that in the show notes for everyone. And Kate, we just really appreciate you. Thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Melissa.
All right, change makers, until next time, keep it real, stay positive, and go eat some healthy foods today. As a quick, friendly reminder, the information in these podcasts are always strictly for educational purposes only. Thanks so much for listening, Changemakers. And if you can please remember to head to your favorite podcast platform and subscribe, rate, and review. It will help this podcast reach other changemakers so they can start listening and tuning in each week.